Well, I would definitely say it felt like I was more going through the motions and checking the boxes for the business. And I've learned a lot since that day, by the way. I've learned a lot since that day.
Hello, you are listening to the Late Bloomer Living podcast, where we are reimagining and redefining what it means to be in midlife, where we are gathering energy, momentum, and excitement for our next chapter via candid conversations with other midlifers about their own pivots, pitfalls, and triumphs. I'm Yvonne Marchese, your host, and I'm so happy you're here. Have you ever started down a path thinking, yes, this is awesome? But then over time, things change and you might suddenly find that it's harder to get up in the morning, hard to do the things you used to glide through happily. Things that used to get you excited now seem like a burden. Maybe you're just going through an internal shift that you need to explore and see if you need to change your routine, change your job, change your habits, change something. My guest this week knows a little bit about how to find clarity when you feel off track or muddled. She's done it more than a few times, and now she teaches other women to do the same. Nina Obier is an author, speaker, and joy seeker. She is the author of Listen, Learn, Love, Lead, and My Daily Clarity, 90 Days to Connect, Create, Communicate, Celebrate. As the founder of Success Simplified, Nina's mission is to provide action-oriented tools and strategies so that her audiences and clients gain the ability to remove doubt, discouragement, and distraction to replace it with clarity, confidence, and commitment. I can't wait for you to hear her story. So without further ado, here's Nina Obier. Let's go. Hey, Nina, thank you so much for being here with me today.
I'm so excited.
I am too. And I always like to say where I met people, we met in Clubhouse in this really cool room for women entrepreneurs. I love your story of how you came to where you are now. So you started off in corporate with hotels and then morphed into your own business. And then you've had a more recent shift. So that's, I want to get to that, but I want you to go back and give us a little bit of the background.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for having me. I am looking forward to this conversation, I think. And I just say that so let's just get that out in the open because
I'm sorry, that was hilarious. Okay.
Yeah. Stay tuned.
Fair enough. Totally get it, by the way. I do. But tell me why. Tell me more.
Stay tuned, because what has been asked of me is to dig deep and be real and genuine, which is a goal of mine of where we are now. But let's just give you a little bit of how we got to where we are now so we can talk about that.
Yeah.
Which I think is great. So I went to college, which is a big deal, by the way. It was not my idea. It was my mom's idea. And she actually picked what background I should get into, which was the hotel restaurant management. And it had something to do with, you're a people person, I think you'll do great in that. So yay, glad I listened, glad I went to a small school, started work the day after graduation. And let me tell you, it was a blast. It was a total blast. And
so mom was right.
Mom was right.
Mom was right. I love that. I kind of love
go
that because I kind of never feel like I'm right, I will say, as a mom. But
it does give us hope, doesn't it?
Right. Okay. So mom was right. And
Mom was right. And I worked for Hyatt Hotels Corporation. I will give them the credit because I stayed with them the entire journey, and many opportunities were afforded to me. We moved. I say we, yes, my husband and I moved across the country for an opportunity that I was given. And then we had our first child. And what's interesting is, and you'll probably hear this theme in my story, when we had her, and then when we actually moved right after having her for his work, I really had this feeling like there was something else I wanted to do with my life. And yet, while I was on maternity leave, although I looked while I was on maternity leave, now we've switched states. I have this opportunity to look. I went with what was comfortable, and I stayed with Hyatt, and they gave me an incredible opportunity. And that opportunity turned into another incredible opportunity. So I don't feel any like remiss from that. But then when I had my second child, I really knew this industry was like no longer for me.
Mm-hmm.
So while I was on maternity leave with her, decided to leave. And you would think, oh, is that when you became an entrepreneur? Well, no, even though I had the inkling that that's where I was going, I didn't have, let's just be honest. Are we being honest here?
Please, yeah.
I really don't feel like I really had the confidence to go do it. So again, took another job, still in a corporate atmosphere, the Federal Reserve Bank. Can you imagine?
Wow.
Yeah. Little excited, joyful bebopper Nina, now in a pseudo government organization as their training and development specialist, where I was now going to infuse the 7 habits of highly effective people, what matters most. We were just going to really try to change the way they looked at things. And so, oh my gosh.
Boy, that's a challenge, I imagine, to take that on with such an institution.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I did, right? And I did. But then I had these babies that were being raised by somebody else because I was all in. Now they were asking me to start travel and work at some of the other branches. And there was that, like kind of uncertainty, but we had just bought a new house and we had just bought a new car. And so I was just going to stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then 20 years ago, right after September 11th, if you remember September 11th.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't continue. I couldn't continue. It hit me personally hard. I actually, 20 years later, just recently spent a weekend with some women on the anniversary. And I thought everyone was going to have the same story as I did. And I realized that not everyone did. Some were actually very, very young. Some, because of where they lived, it didn't really affect them. But myself, my husband, worked for the federal government, and it changed everything with what he was going to have to do and be. And I no longer wanted someone else to raise our babies. And so I think that was like the push and the courage and the like 2x4 hit me in the head. And I went ahead and I took the leap of faith and I turned my hobby into my business.
Wow. Wow. So you started coaching then. Now, at some point in there, you were doing direct sales.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So no, I wasn't coaching. It's the direct sales piece that, so I was enjoying this hobby that actually was a direct selling company.
So you had a little side giggy kind of thing. They like that new word, side giggy.
Side giggy. That's
side
the
giggy. So you had your side gig going on that was a hobby selling direct on Amazon, right?
It was.
Was it Amazon or eBay?
So it was a home-based business. And so this home-based business was called Creative Memories, and it was a scrapbooking company. And man, 20 years ago, I'm not going to act like we were in the dark ages. There was a website, but it was, it was very basic.
You're right. Yeah. What am I thinking? Amazon, like 20 years ago, it wasn't really a thing. Right. Yeah. Right. Okay. Right? Okay. Yes.
So more so, I think what we did is we would have home parties. We would show the products and then people would tell us which products they wanted. Then we would kind of go behind the scenes and order them their products.
Got it. Yeah.
I'm really trying to remember. Doesn't it make us sound like ancient when I talk about that? But needless to say, from from such a pivotal moment. And now recall, we had just bought a new car, we had just bought a new house. My income was part of the puzzle. My name was on the leases, my name was on the car. And
no pressure there.
Yeah, but I went to my husband and I'm like, I was doing the bills. And so he's like, well, can we do it? Of course we can.
Sure.
Sure. And I wonder if, having that, right? Sometimes that's what we need. So as I said before, I feel like there was always a little part of me that was like, maybe corporate's not for me. Being out on my own is for me. And just having that moment of, well, now I'm going to do it. Right. And I'm not saying it was smooth sailing, but there was a lot of incredible stuff that happened over a 13-year period with selling scrapbooks.
Wow. Wow.
Isn't
and you loved
great?
what you were doing, and you got that flexible time. You're with your kids. Totally get that.
Yeah.
Totally get. It's why I started photography, with that idea in mind, that I wanted something that would be flexible enough to where I could be home with them when they needed me. And and it was a side gig for a long time before I was able to go full time with it. Yeah. There's
Yeah.
some, yeah. So you took that opportunity, and you made it happen.
Yeah, took that opportunity and ran with it, and so glad, because what was interesting, I didn't know the pieces and parts about that industry. I had never been a part of it. And, again, it wasn't the popular choice with a lot of people, because Hyatt Hotels, I had great benefits with them. One of them being, right, free hotel rooms.
Right.
To travel. But who knew, if you worked your business, that there were incentives, and that's very big in the party plan industry. And once I started to realize that, and really, put my energy in the right way towards that, 5 years in a row, I earned all expense paid trips for my husband and I. So
Awesome.
what was so cool was, while our kids, right, were young, then my family got to come in and help. We got to have our own private time like that. I truly do appreciate that I had that time. I appreciate that industry. I understand why people get into it. And then there comes a time, right? I feel like you always have to check, are you in alignment with your current assignment? Are you still in alignment with the company, the product, the services, like all the things? And then again, in that one moment, it was like, something's changed, something's shifted. What's next?
And then, so now something changed. So let me actually back up before I ask you what's next. So there's something changed, something shifted. What did that feel like to you? What did that look like in your day to day?
Well, I would definitely say it felt like I was more going through the motions and checking the boxes for the business. And I've learned a lot since that day, by the way. I've learned a lot since that day. And I think what was changing was a simplistic idea, product, company that I could get behind. Year after year after year, like the world, right, started to get more complex and more diverse. And it was interesting, because at first I thought, okay, more diversity, more options, this is going to be better. But who I am to my core, it wasn't. More didn't mean better.
Like more product. When you say more
product, we at one point, I think, had 500 different products. When I first started with the organization, I don't know, we maybe had 50, I don't know, 30.
Wow.
I don't know. So the evolution of it, and going with it till I no longer could go with it. And it when it becomes such a part of you, and in that industry, you're with so many different people. You're never in business by yourself. You're in business for yourself, but that industry, you're really not in business by yourself. Mm-hmm. So it's like, wait, this isn't feeling right. Oh, what am I going to, and then is there going to be this grief and this loss and this, it was interesting, if I do say so. It was very interesting. And not
what were you worried about being in grief and loss over?
I think what I'm all about. And that's more, I feel like, the people and the connections. And I know, right? Whether you're working with people or not, you could still keep the connection. And we also know a lot of times connections are based on common interests. Mm-hmm. And so when that common interest is no longer there, right, something's going to change.
So the fear of the grief and loss came from the idea of giving it up and moving on?
Yeah, I think so. Because I kind of knew, all right, this is no longer, man, I mean, I started to learn about brain training and the power of, feel good first, then take action. I learned that from a woman named Dana Wilde. I highly recommend her. And it was no longer right. I couldn't get to a feel good place so that I could take action. So I, again, learned very quickly that if for me it was going to be a push, then why am I still doing it?
Yeah. Wow. So eventually push comes to shove. I was listening to something the other day and I was like, yeah, that really is it. It was another podcast I was listening to, and the host asked the guest, how do you know when you're ready to jump into the wild or something like that? Like, what would be a question somebody could ask themselves about basically being ready to make a change, right? And I started thinking about the idea of being on a cliff, and maybe have the idea was that there's enough when there's enough pain, when the pain of staying in stasis is more than the pain you fear in stepping into the next thing, that's the precipice, right? So I was like thinking about, okay, if you're standing on the edge of a cliff and you could jump pretty safely into a pool of water below, but it's high enough that it scares the bejesus out of you, but maybe there's a bear coming up behind you on the cliff. It's like, which one are you more afraid of, right? I'm going to jump in the water if I see the bear coming behind me. So this happens for you. I'm assuming you get to that tipping point.
I definitely get to the tipping point. And I really don't tell this part of the story too much, but I feel like Yvonne and other people would want to know, because I see a pattern, and I'm not beating myself up for my pattern, but I feel like it's how I'm designed. I knew where I could step in powerfully would be to share my personal development, share what I've learned through personal development, through training and development, through speaking, through, again, the programs I had been through, and it really was calling to me. And people were like, well, you were so good in Party Plan. How about, we throw you this idea? And I allowed 2 companies to woo me, again, because it's like, well, yeah, it's what I know. Look what I was able to do, and all that kind of stuff. And I remember, again, like for it really felt like a split second. It's like, okay, I'll do this. This sounds great. And then it was like, oh my gosh, doesn't it come back to, right? Where is the confidence to just go do that other thing? So even though I established my company and I started to do it, it's like I had a safety net. With a couple of other Party Plan companies. And again, I had fun with it. I did well with it. It was a totally different being. Yes, it was a product, but it wasn't like with Creative Memories. I wasn't selling you a completed scrapbook. you had to create the scrapbook, right? So I was teaching and I was encouraging and I was, you know, talking to you about the stories and how important they were. So it was funny when I started to sell just products, I was like, wait a minute. There was something about Creative Memories that was different.
And it was the training bit. It was the teaching. It was the, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So now, that was your back, your safety net, right? Did you start to do the one-on-one because I know you went to one-on-one coaching. Did you start to do the one-on-one coaching with that safety net happening? Like, was it a side gig? Again, side giggy thing?
Right. So it's like giggy. I love it, right? We say giggy.
Getting giggy with it.
Like giggy with it. I did have both simultaneously going on again, right? Because I had kind of made that commitment. Let's try this other thing, but really, this is what I want to do. So they were simultaneously going on, and what was happening was I was creating programs, and I was essentially doing group coaching because my programs were not just information, they were transformation. But at the same time, right, I had my side giggies going on that were products. And again, listen, what I've learned in entrepreneurship, truly a confused buyer never buys. So which is it, Nina? Which is it? What are you doing? Are you selling? That's just my humble opinion. And I know that people can be multi-passionate, and I know you can do multi things. You can't market them all together. You got to have the funds, I believe, to market them separately. The messages are different. And if we're listening to my story, when things get too complicated, right? That's not who I am. I'm all about less is more, right? More streamlined, more simplified. And I knew that was a core within me. But man, I take a long time to get there. And so maybe that's permission to all of you. Little by little, a little will become a lot.
My goodness. Yes. Baby steps. Right. It's like, I tell you, I'm in the middle of just trying to give myself the grace to be patient with the journey that I'm on and stay curious because I love doing the podcast and I have no idea where I'm heading with this. I just love doing it. And I hope to make money around it at some point, but I want to really nail that. I want to know that what I'm offering, whatever I end up doing, that I feel like, yeah, this is something that people need, and get really excited about it. And as you said, it takes you a long time. It's taken me a long time to process through that. And you know what? I just got to be okay with that.
You definitely do, which kind of we can skip forward now to the part where I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Another truth rant, right? Another truth. 5 years ago. So it's a 20-year entrepreneurial journey, really 2 businesses, although there was all those other little things in between. A couple of years into the second business, I had this moment, this epiphany, this real clarity I've never had before, clarity, confidence, this commitment to what I was doing through a program that I went through. And since that moment, man, changed the trajectory of my life. And I published my second book. Now,
wait a minute. Hold on. Back up. Second book. So what was the first book? Go back.
Yeah, we just skip over that. No,
just having to publish a book, but we're not going to talk about that. We can talk about the second book. Sorry.
Oh, okay. All right. So the first book was published as I like to pay attention and listen, and I was putting myself out there as a trainer, a speaker, and a coach. And they said, well, these days speakers have books, right? You can self-publish. It's the thing to do. And I was like, all right. I like to write, meaning I journal a lot. I haven't even spoken about the power of putting pen to paper yet. So why not? But really the thought of writing did not fill my cup. However, for the past year prior to that, I was doing 1-minute videos on Facebook. And so another person I overheard said, you know, you don't have to write your book. You could speak your book. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. What do I have here? Let's see. Let's go back. And I, again, some kind of divine download. The title of the book came, then the idea came, and we ended up transcribing my videos and putting them into a book format. So my first book is called Listen, Learn, Love, Lead, 40 Simple Messages for an Inspired Life. And I say we because my older daughter helped me transcribe it.
Awesome.
And we added quotes, and then we had the transcription. And then of course I have a piece there where I want you to reflect on it. So excited, so happy, self-published, had fun with it. And I was like, that's good. I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went on my own personal journey, a journaling journey, which again, I've always written. I have the diaries. I love to take notes. I'm just that person, not even realizing the power of putting pen to paper. And I learned a system from someone else. And of course, I took that system and then I molded it into my own. And for over 500 days, I journaled with an accountability partner. And through that, after having this epiphany of clarity for myself, I came home and within a day or two, I published my second book, which is really the system that I had created for my clients.
Wow.
So now I have this book called My Daily Clarity, which is a 90-day journey that you go on by putting in the work to get more clarity, confidence, and commitment to who you say you want to be, what you want to do, and what you want to have.
Wow. Wow. That is so amazing. And so you did this with an accountability partner for how many days again? For 500?
So for over 500 days, the most beautiful soul named Kat Wagman, who I'm so glad she got to see the finished product, but she has actually since left the world. And yet that journey we were on, we had no idea really what we were preparing for, which was really to prepare her for this grand journey, where because we had learned that power of putting pen to paper, it really helped her when she got sick, and for her to advocate for herself and for her to do all these things. And so I really feel like it was not a coincidence that we were together, but a beautiful, beautiful God incident. So I say this because 5 years ago, I still am. Well, okay. 5 years ago, I was proud about it. I got people to use it, but I've never really launched. I never really let people know about it. If it comes up in conversation, it comes up. And now more than ever, really within the last several months, and really since I've met you, more and more people are picking it up, and it's having a really incredible impact. And so now here I am, like, what am I doing with this? And should I be doing more with it? And now it's like, wait a minute, I already have a business model. What's going on? And so that's how you and I started having this conversation. It's like, do y'all really want to know how I feel right now? Because talking about a book on clarity, and where do I sit in this journey?
Yeah. Well, I always say it like this, when we have breakthroughs, it's not one and done ever. Right. So you might get to a point of clarity, and then life, aha, I've got my aha moment, and now I know where I'm going. I know what I'm doing. And then, and then it gets muddy again. Right. So it's a constant need to do that. And even if you're the one that created the book, of course, you're going to have your own moments of muddled, non-clarity, right?
Yeah. So maybe you shouldn't be listening to me now, because right now I'm a little muddled.
No, you know what? I'm discovering more and more that we can make a difference for people even when we're not crystal clear. Like, you know, I held off on starting the podcast because for 2 years. I had the idea in my head for 2 years. And I held off on doing it for a number of reasons, not the least of which was busyness and didn't know how to do it, and imposter syndrome. But imposter syndrome, it turns out, I look back on it, and that was really the biggest thing. And I was like, well, I'm not an expert. Why am I? Who's going to listen to me? Why would anybody want to listen to me on a podcast? I'm not an expert. Like, I don't have, what do I have to offer? But what I do have to offer is my journey and my non-clarity, and that I'm just trying to stay curious and figure this out, just like the rest of everybody else, and hopefully I've got people on like you who can come and tell your story and share your messiness so that somebody else knows that their messiness is normal. It's part of it,
Totally. And it's interesting. I want to grab that word curious. I love alliteration. I love, what do they call it? Like when you have oh my gosh, it's alliteration and acronyms. I love it.
Oh yeah.
Acronyms. And so the subtitle of the book is 90 Days to Connect, Create, Communicate, and Celebrate. But really, it's kind of like 90 Days to Curiosity, right? Like, of what is going to come out if you can honestly do the work, right? The deep work. And I know that I'm at that point right now. It's like, we can no longer stay on the surface. There's definitely been change. There's been change for a lot of people.
Right. When you first told me that first part of the real change came from 9/11 happening, my first thought was, wow, we're in the middle of another sea change, just like that. Like that was a defining moment. Like, I was living in New York City at the time. And so many of my friends ended up leaving the city afterwards, and essentially, I think just from a need of reevaluating and looking at where they wanted to go and making essential changes in my core friendships from the city, just all around the country, really interesting. And now I think we're in another time of everybody just taking a step back and reevaluating and looking at what's really true for them.
You're good. Let's just give her props because you're really good, because that's really where I'm at. In May of 2020, we physically moved from where we raised our babies for 25 years, from South Florida to South Carolina. And my husband is retired. We're young, he's retired. And then part of me is like, but I'm just getting going. And I think up until now, and just recently, we lived in an apartment. We hadn't lived in an apartment in a long time. Ooh, that's kind of cool. He actually had the opportunity to do some contract work in Florida. So we lived there for 7 weeks in a hotel room. That was kind of cool. We built a home. We had never done that for 6 months. That was kind of cool. But now the dust is settling, right? Literally. And what just happened? That's such a whirlwind. And I know my story, there's other people who probably did the same thing, but there's other people who didn't move and everything changed, right? Maybe their friends moved out. Maybe they, a lot of people remodeled their houses. What was there for that? But I guess I'm trying to get my words together, because I think it goes back to when I've had the most significant change has nothing to do with any of that. It's what's truly going on in the inside and the inner work. And it's time for me to do that again. I got to be curious.
So doing that journaling is key for you that's your tool. to get.
Totally. And
Yeah.
it's interesting because I could show you. I've been my best purchaser. I use the book. I'm not just a promoter. I actually use it, and I have all of my books. And I just wonder, now that we're talking, it's like it is a part of my practice. It has morphed and changed. And yet, yeah, I feel like, let's remember to the beginning of this whole conversation, have I gotten to a part of where I'm just ticking the boxes and not doing the deep inner work?
Oh my gosh, right? That's a great question to ask yourself. Yeah. I started doing a morning routine as part of my getting clarity. And that was when I was about 48. I read Mel Robbins' book, The 5-Second Rule. And then I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to stop hitting that snooze button. I'm going to put my alarm across the room. I'm going to have to put my feet on the floor. So exercise and meditation for 30 days. And then she had a journal. Then I tried to put journaling into my process. And I started with a bullet journal type idea and morphing some of what she had in her journal with the other things. And so powerful. But I do find, like, let's say, for instance, part of it is like I have a little gratefulness section that I do. So I try to do a gratefulness process every morning. And it's hard sometimes to not just be phoning it in, to really tap into what you're grateful for right then and there.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, it took me a long time to get to that. Sorry.
No, what I love about this, it's so interesting because I never listened to Mel Robbins. I'm imagining that maybe somebody I follow, I got the idea from someone, right? And well, I know where I got it from. It was a woman standing up on stage who's a very dear friend, told us about her journaling exercise, but who knows? Maybe she was inspired by Mel Robbins. I don't know. Right?
None of us get this stuff. It's not like anybody's making this stuff up, right? We're all
Like
borrowing from other people and then turning it into our own, what works for us, right?
Totally. So what's so interesting now that and this is what I love. It's kind of when I was in the scrapbooking, people didn't want to talk about other scrapbooking companies or other scrapbook supplies, or maybe if someone wasn't on your team, they didn't want to invite them to meetings. I'm like, y'all, it's the more people who know, the more people who know, so you talking about Mel Robbins, which I heard that again just recently. Yay, we have a platform. Because what's interesting is part of my daily clarity are 4 things. Drink more water, people. If you are not clear, if you have foggy brain, I don't know who else needs to tell you, but drink more water. I promise you, you're not drinking enough. Move your body. For me, alliteration, walk, but maybe not everyone can walk, but move your body. And you just spoke about that. Mm-hmm. Then for me, it's the word. So word could be meditation. It could be what you're listening to. It could be the songs. It could be the words you're saying to yourself, which is my brain training part of me. The music you're listening to. Words matter. Let's just say that. That's why word had to be in there. Mm-hmm. And then my final W, surprise, write. Write it out. Because the science behind it, what writing does for you. But in this conversation, you and I both have agreed there can be, and we're not going to shame ourselves or blame ourselves or whatever. There can be the ticking it off kind, which I still think has power. And then there can be, am I willing to really get these thoughts, these emotions, these feelings, these words out on paper? Because keeping them inside doesn't always serve us, because we have 60 to 90,000 thoughts a day, they say, and about 95% of them you've had yesterday. And so I ask you, which of those thoughts are serving you? And not many of them. So instead of having it rattle, rattle, rattle in your brain, get out a piece of paper, write it out. A lot of times when I'm at that point, I got to just write it out. The piece of paper ends up getting torn up, thrown away, but it allows my brain then to clear. And since I'm all about clarity, these are the ways that I can support people in that, and myself, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. I will say that 2 things that tend to drop off my routine in the morning is visualization and journaling. But when I do them, they're so powerful. And too, like the whole idea of like phoning it in and not going deep. Somebody said something the other day and I was like, oh yeah. Like I'm often all about getting out of your comfort zone. And they made the case for, you know what? Sometimes you need the comfort zone. You need that. You need that rest. You can't always be pushing yourself outside of comfort. And I was like, oh yeah, that is very wise. I guess my point is we shouldn't beat ourselves up for going into that automatic zone.
Right. And I think probably, but what we're both hearing or what we could discern from that, at least what I'm saying about my story, is where has it become autopilot, ticking the boxes, but I'm doing the routine, but is it moving my life forward?
Right.
Versus this works, so it's in my comfort, but using it and going deeper is the part that's out of comfort. Mm-hmm. So I guess just talking this out. Thank you. Talk therapy maybe is what we're doing here, people.
You know what I love about you and I have known each other for maybe less than 2 weeks. This is our second conversation, and I love the depth of it. So thank you for being so open and candid and going there.
Well, I think we'll take another C and just bring it out there. I know that my soul craves that, and listen, there's only so much life, right, that we get to live. And I want to choose to go deeper. I really do. And so I thank you for the opportunity to do that. My soul definitely craves it. And I imagine more people are going to come to the table for it because I think it's going to be a better place, a better world when we do that. And you brought it up so eloquently. How interesting 20 years later, and are people really looking at that and really taking stock in what's really going on with themselves? And so here's this opportunity. We're going to offer you some simple systems or strategies, whatever works for you to do that work.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, this has been a tremendous conversation. Is there anything that how can people find you? Where do they go to get more Nina?
Yes. So I mentioned it. As of this moment right now, I am in Clubhouse doing a room called Cup of Joy. Mm-hmm. And it's every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. There's no plans to change it yet. And since Clubhouse is connected to Instagram, I now spend more time in Instagram, and come check it out. I really just like to have fun, share some joy and some clarity and that kind of stuff. So Instagram or Clubhouse is where you can find me.
Very cool. And you have a website too, right?
I do.
So what I'll do is make sure that I get the link to that in the show notes for everybody so that, they can find all your links. They can find you in Instagram, find you on your website. And then, cool. So Nina Obier is how people find you in Clubhouse. And if you're not in Clubhouse yet, I feel like I should get paid for pushing Clubhouse, but I'm not. But I am such a raving, rabid fan of the power of it and the connections and the collaborations and people I'm meeting. And it's amazing.
Who knew? I think that's part of what has happened this year, right? So we're talking at this moment, I'm 9 months into Clubhouse. And I think it really did. It really changed. It's been a defining moment right now in my business. And so with those things and pieces and parts and changes, right? I think that's where the evolution is continuing to go.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's fantastic. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, there you have it. I think my biggest takeaway from talking to Nina is the reminder that journaling is just really a powerful tool for gaining clarity. I really do better when I'm journaling, so I'm recommitting to making it part of my morning routine. I'll keep you posted on how that goes. And besides that, I love her high energy and joyful attitude. She's so fun to talk to. So hey, if you want to know more about Nina, her coaching services, or her book, I'll have that information for you in the show notes. In fact, I think I'm going to be picking up a copy of her Clarity journal. And what you can do is you can just go to latebloomerliving.com/podcast and click on the show notes for episode 80. Episode 80. Wow. Anyway, I want to give you a personal invitation to join me in Clubhouse. I host rooms every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, along with my buddies Cecilia Dentino and Hannah Starobin of the Twisting the Plot podcast, which I love and highly recommend, and our friend Yael Gilboa, who you might remember as my guest on the podcast from episode 44. You can join us there in direct conversation, like real back and forth, which I would love to talk to you about how we can live our best lives in midlife and beyond. If you're not familiar with Clubhouse or can't bear the thought of being on one more social media platform, I just want you to know that the time I've spent in Clubhouse has been rich in real conversations and relationship building, and totally worth the time I've spent there. More so than any other social media platform I've ever been on. If you have questions about it, I'd be happy to talk to you directly. You can email me at latebloomerliving@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening. I can't tell you, I know, this is an investment of your time. I really appreciate that you are here with me still. I hope you have a fantastic week. Stay safe and well. Talk soon.